I am late. Had a dinner, birthday dinner for the girlfriend's mom. Out in somewhere far. But anyway, delicious food, great time. Go every year. I look forward to it every year. So, but now we get a super dressed up stream. So yay for that. Who's excited? I'm excited for it. I wear a tie like twice a year. And y'all get to see me with my tie face on. So that's do that. Do this. Yes, I want to be on my channel. I don't care what Shroud's doing. That's muted, and I can do the clip, and that's muted, and that's good to go. Cool beaners. I really only need the chat from that. Doesn't always go through. I click that, I can see the chat. Chat. What's up, Mr. Poor? Mr. Michael Poor, welcome to the show. Long time no see, buddy. How you doing? That's probably broken now. How is life? Alright, I think everything is set up and ready to go. What's up, Mr. Zeddy? What's going on? Sounds like fun. I just got back from dinner with the girlfriend's family. So, place called the William Penn Diner at not super far. It's like a hour away from our house. Super good food. It's like really expensive. Bill was like $400 and some for 8 of us, so it's not crazy expensive, I guess. $50 a person for like, I don't know, but it's really good food. They only go once a year when they do
wait, I'm just trying to think. William Penn Diner.
Or I'm sorry, it's the William Penn Inn. It's not a diner. It's William Penn Inn. So it's
okay. I'm just trying to figure it out in my mind. That's cool. Is it like a
yes,
high class type place?
Very high class. Like it's like it was either started by William Penn or someone close to him, something like that. And so the building's been around that long. It's a historical building.
Holy crap! Yeah, that's a long ass time.
It's pretty sweet.
Okay, give me 2 seconds, dude. Calm your jet. Stop biting me.
Don't.
Stop biting.
Doggy issues.
Yeah.
Oh, she's getting mouthy.
You hear her just give me shit? She is mouthy. When I tell her not to do something, she freaking barks at me. She was barking at me, like barking her head off at me for a good bit today. But anyways, that's pretty cool. Sounds like
yeah, I look forward to it every year. They have the super good salad that I love, and I tear it up. But yeah, they only go once a year for her mom's birthday because they're signed up for something, so they get, I think it might even be 50% off. I don't know. For her birthday, it's like some really good discount. So we go because of that.
Oh, okay. That sounds awesome. There's a place here. There's a place here called the what's it called? The Lord Elgin.
Okay.
It's a restaurant, but it's a restaurant that's part of a hotel. So like it's got this big fancy ballroom and whatever that everybody eats at, and like all these like fancy stuff. I went there for a friend's wedding. No, not wedding. It was a wedding party. A wedding party dinner. Right. And holy crap, that was the most expensive place I've ever gone to. It was like 83.50 or something like that for like so the way that they do it is like you get your entree, which is like, so you pay for your entree and then you pay for the side. It comes as well with the entree, and then you pay for like any other appetizers and drinks and stuff. So it was like $83.50 plus $27 for my side, which was like a creamy pasta kind of thing, like a you know what gnocchi is? It was like gnocchi, like gnocchi with like a cream like a cream sauce or whatever. And this is the most expensive restaurant I've ever gone to. Like, I think it cost me myself just alone just over $200.
That's crazy.
For dinner. Yeah. Like, there's one more fancier restaurant here in Ottawa, and it's part of like it's the two. Okay, it's called. Okay, I can't tell you because it's a French name. Give me a second. I'll have to look it up. Just because I'll end up messing up the name of the restaurant.
Right.
Give me a second. I'm looking it up real quick.
I didn't have any armor. Damn. And I didn't have any accuracy either.
So it's called Fairmont's Chateau Laurier Wilfrid Latamont.
That's insane.
That's how it is. Some people people just call it the Chateau Laurier, the Chateau Laurier restaurant. Like, but anyways, it's the restaurant for the biggest hotel, like the grandest hotel. So this hotel was created. This hotel was created by like, it's got like a huge historical significance to it. Oh, holy crap. Okay,
Yep.
Give me 2 seconds.
Yep. Go do what you gotta do. DJ Henny. Squishy Racer. I get some headshots with this mofo. It's gonna be a tough one. One, because headshots are tough for me to hit because my accuracy's terrible. Two, he's the biggest character in the game, so it's very easy to hit him.
Another day, another road.
I'm gonna give that up.
I'm the jump master.
Get ready. I'm coming for you, friend.
Oh, I didn't know I had this one.
Sorry, my dog just decided it would be a great idea to shit.
Oh, nice.
She's still learning, but like she's not completely like walk trained. She still does accidents in the house, but
Oh, I thought there was a door down there. Shit.
okay, stop it.
Definitely not a door down there.
But anyway, anyways, the story I was telling you. So it's got historical significance. The Shadow Warrior's got historical significance that back years and years and years ago, the Queen's father, back in like the 1800s or something like that, like the late 19 or the early 1900s or late 1800s or something like that. The king actually like took place. Sorry, not the king. The queen's brothers and stuff like that. The princes actually took place in helping build that building.
Oh, nice. That's fancy.
Yeah, in the city, I like in this city, it literally looks like a giant castle,
That's
and it's down smack dab in the middle of
pretty
downtown.
awesome.
Yeah, get off! Oh my God, you're just the hyperest dog in the world today.
40. Yeah,
Stop biting me!
Actually, yeah, let's do this. We'll do that combo. I'll take that for later, just in case.
Okay, you don't need to bite. So she decided that it'd be a great idea to chew on her crate today, which she's been doing. Like she's been like really heavy on the chewing on the thing. Well, she's like chewing on everything and anything, right? Well, she was chewing on her metal
Right.
crate today, and she like she jerks back for a second, looks at me, and I was like, "What's wrong with you?" Whatever, right? And ow, stop biting me. She jerks back at whatever. She looks at me, so I walk up to her, like looking at her. She's like rubbing her paws on her face. The stupid dog chewing on metal.
Oh my
broke her
goodness.
frickin' tooth. Yeah. She like her canine teeth, one of her canine tooth, like the long sharp like
Right.
fang like ones.
Jeez.
She broke her tooth, so I was like, shit. So I called the vet, like the one that did her shots and stuff, right? I was
Yeah,
like, what do
really.
I do? And they're like, it's fine, just. I was like, they're like, it's just her baby teeth. It's fine, just. She'll be okay with that. I was like, oh, okay. I was
Yeah,
like, really
no, I
worried.
absolutely would be
They're
too.
like, yeah, it's just her baby. They're like, it's just her baby teeth. Like she'll, you know, before she's 6 months, she'll get her like new sets of teeth in, anyways. And that little nub of tooth will just come out, and I was like, okay. They're like, if there's any, he goes at our next checkup, I'll look at it to see if there's anything
Anything that need,
or like at our
anything that
next
they need
shots,
to like remove or whatever, take care of.
like if there's any like major situations, but she's like, she's fine. Is she being her normal self? I was like, yeah, she's running around attacking people, and he's like, all right, good.
Yeah.
She her normal self. Yep, she's running around
Yep,
attacking
she's still
people.
destroying everything. I need to pick up this heavy clip I just dropped that nobody wanted. Where was that? Where was that? Oh, they're coming back now. It's my heavy clip. What's up, babe?
Those things on the cake, I think they were pecans.
I don't know why.
Opie knocked them over and ate them. I'm gonna look up and dog realize to eat that.
I think he'll be fine. If he starts to act funny, then we'll, whatever. But I don't know. Oh, yeah, Opie knocked over some stuff that came in Kim's dessert and ate them, some like peanut things. And she's concerned that they were pecans or something, and she's gonna look up if dogs can eat them. I think we'll be fine.
Well, I know peanuts are completely fine for dogs.
Yeah, I don't know. She's just worried about, I don't know.
I know. Worried. Oh yeah, of course. It's like when Siren broke her freaking tooth, I was like super worried. I was like freaking out. I was like, oh my god. I was like, what am I gonna do? I've got a fucked up
Yeah.
dog now. Like,
Yeah, I felt the same way. Like when Chibs wasn't acting right, I thought I was like all like everything was going through my mind. I'm like, oh my god, we're gonna have to put him down. Like he's sick, he's old, he's dying. No, he just like had a herniated, like he had a pulled muscle in his back. Not even a hernia, just a pulled muscle.
let me see your tooth. Hey, let me see your tooth. Stop biting me. I'm trying to look at you.
Teeth is okay if she's using them to bite you, I would say.
Yeah, I know. That's enough. Be nice. You're a nice dog. We are nice people and you're a nice dog. Exactly. Give me kisses, not bites. Ow!
Phoenix kid here.
Level 3. Take a level 3 backpack.
It's odd. She bites so hard.
Yeah, Opie does too. Opie's just like messing around, and all of a sudden it's like, yo, dog, that freaking hurt. Like, you need to calm yourself.
Stop. You crazy dog. Stop.
I have too much ammo for these guns.
Ow! My hand! It's not a chew toy.
But Dad, it looks like the flesh-covered chew toy. Enemy? Sure thing, buddy.
No, stop! Stop! I said no! No!
Copy that.
No! No! You're gonna get smacked for if you keep barking at me. Like, did you hear that shit?
Yeah, she's a mouthy dog.
Stop! Stop! It's because she wants to bite my headset. She wants to bite my headset and I won't let her. Ow! Stop biting me. You're gonna get a slap. You're gonna get a slap.
Barrel stabilizer here.
Stop. Stop! I said shut up.
Where'd those enemies go? That's a waste of a special. Oh, maybe not if you see them.
Target over there.
Man, why are they shooting me? I didn't do anything to them. I didn't.
Oh, Siren, get out of the bathroom, I swear to God. Forgot to freaking close the bathroom door. Oh my God, what is up? What do you have in your mouth?
Why would you stay there and... Oh, man. Oh, shit, they're zipping over there.
There's a care package coming
Watch
down.
that spot.
Oh, I broke the shield. Oh, that.
Oh, I ended up hearing some really sad news today, though. My dog's mother. You know how I said like that she was she was abandoned. She was like abandoned and like malnourished and stuff like that when they found her, right? When they found her, she was pregnant or whatever. They they had fed her all this kind of stuff, taking her in. She had her puppies and stuff like that. Well, she ended up passing away last night, from some sort of disease or something like that. Not entirely
that
sure
sucks. That's a shame.
what exactly it is, but it's from something from being like, you know, malnourished or whatever. And basically they had said like the reason why she was alive, right, the reason why she stayed alive is because like the hormones when she was giving birth, when the hormones she had when she was pregnant.
Oh really? And that kept her alive.
And the hormones that she had, and when she was producing milk, but now that she no longer has her puppies,
that's crazy.
That went away,
that's
right?
I mean,
and so it was keeping the disease at bay.
Okay.
So
yeah, that's. I mean, she didn't have a good life anyway. I mean, so. Right, she was abused and everything, right? Or she was just abandoned. They don't know if she was abused.
Yeah. They weren't. She had like injuries and stuff, but they weren't. The results of whether or not the injuries were from like finding her, like her after she was abandoned. Like maybe she was like got in a fight with another animal or you know, like whatever it could be, but the results about whether or not it was actually like somebody harming her, those results were inconclusive.
Actually, hold on 1 second. What's up, babe?
So
they're pecans or something? I've never heard of dogs having issues with.
I kind of felt like I remember that's what made me look it up.
And what makes you think that they're pecans?
They are after I saw the picture of the pecans. So it said 1 or 2 won't kill your dog, but a handful might. I don't fucking know.
So what do you want to do? You want to take him to the hospital?
I don't think.
Well, whatever you want to do. If you want to go to the hospital, we can go to the hospital. You tell me. Or you want to see how, you want to just monitor him and see how he feels? No, I'm home at 2. I'm dead. I'm home at 2, so... He might die of diarrhea. I mean, we'll know, I think, by the end of the night. That clock's wrong. It gets me every time. I'm like, holy shit, it's 1 o'clock already? We'll know by the end of the night if we need to do something. Alright, just keep an eye on him. Stop poisoning our dogs. Thank you.
Stop poisoning our dogs.
Okay. So yeah, she looked it up. They are pecans, and they are poisonous to dogs. Apparently, I've never heard of that, but she said she thought that's why she looked it up. And then when she looked up like what a pecan looks like, for sure that's what they were.
I've had dogs eat pecans though. I swear to God.
Right, it's like I don't know, like chocolate is like some dogs are allergic to chocolate. But since it's like such a risk, like you just don't feed your dog chocolate. But Chibs had gotten into when my mom was alive, she had a TV dinner and she didn't eat all like the chocolate pudding or the brownie or something, and he got into it when she was sleeping and ate it. And I like freaked out when it happened. I'm like, oh my god, like I can't have chocolate, like you could die. She felt really bad, but then like he was fine. So like now he eats chocolate. He's not allergic to it. He actually loves candy. Candy's like his favorite thing. Not chocolate. He likes like Sour Patch Kids. Or he like goes ape shit for Sour Patch Kids. Right, puppy? So yeah, we don't feed him a lot, but he will do just about anything for Sour Patch Kids. He loves his Sour Patch Kids. Yes, he does. Yes, he does. It's time to loosen his tie up a little bit, I think. Actually, you know what? I'm gonna loosen it all the way off. Didn't even have time to get out of my dress clothes. Came home. I was like, I don't know what to do for my social media post. Had Kim take a picture of me.
So it's not an allergy to pecans.
So it's not an allergy. What is it? They're just straight poisonous?
It causes eating it in large quantities can cause a dog to suffer severe gastric upset.
Okay. So they just don't digest it properly.
Yeah, pecans contain a toxin called jugalone, which is toxic to dogs. If a dog eats ate pecans in any great quantity, it would suffer gastric intestinal upset or an obstruction. Although overdoing it on pecans would not be fatal to your pet, it could make him sick.
Yeah, there weren't a lot. I saw the dessert. There's maybe like 12 that were served with it, and we ate some at the restaurant. So it wasn't like a whole lot.
So it says let's see.
Let's land here.
They're not moldy pecans, so moldy pecans.
Nah, we paid good money. They're definitely not moldy pecans. Chibs is hoping that they're poisonous. He's like, oh, we'll get him out of my life. That's not nice, Chibs. You know what really grinds my gears? When you start a game and you're missing somebody for whatever reason, and then the other person quits because of it. Chibs, relax, bud. I'm doing some stuff. I'm at work. Do I come to your job and bother you and tell you how bad of a day I'm having?
Inside the next ring.
No, I don't. I don't come to the dog factory and tell you that I'm having a terrible day and I want treats. Oh, hey there, buddy.
So basically, this is what it says. I'm looking at this veterinarian website. So what if my dog is vegan, right? It says your canine companions can be crafty when it comes to pinching scraps from our plates. If your dog only eats a few pieces of pecans, 0 to 8, it says 0 to 8. The pecans should just pass through your pet naturally, without causing any issues. But on the other hand, if your dog guzzles a whole whole bowl or a bag of pecans, you could have a problem. First of all, note how many pecans your pet has eaten. So, like you said, they're under 12, right?
Yeah, a whole lot.
You should be fine. You should be fine. They say like no pet has eaten 0 to 8, no problem at all. 8 to 20 says 8 to 20 monitor your pet. 20 plus take the dog to the vet.
I'll tell Kim that after this game. She'll still be concerned about it, but I appreciate you looking that up.
Well, of course, yeah.
I figured he'd probably be okay. Right.
If you're monitoring him, it's possible that he
That's
could
what she
have
said.
diarrhea from having it. That's what this says. But just to be careful, just to keep an eye on if he gets overly lethargic
Okay.
or blood in his feces or urine.
Okay.
So if those things, then that might be a indication that you need to take him to the.
Okay. I'm
the
gonna
vet.
I'm gonna go tell Kim this real quick.
Pass that.
Yeah, I'll be right back. Get in, bud. Get in. Get in. Get in. Get in. Get in. Stay. Stay. Are you staying? Is that how you stay? No. Get in. Chip, you gotta relax, bud. You got food, you got water, you got a bed, you're fine. Alright? Alright, I'm back. Yeah, you got all the stuff you need. You don't want to be in here, but too fucking bad. This is where you're living for tonight. So I told Kim, she said she looked up a whole bunch of stuff. She saw conflicting information. One site said it wasn't poisonous, another said it was. She read like Nationwide Pet because we have pet insurance, so she read like their website, and they said that was poisonous or whatever. So I just told her what you said, and that like you found like a an amount, like an amount chart thing, like saying like how many nuts equals what kind of damage. She's like, all right, well, I didn't see that. So I explained all that stuff to her, and so she seems okay.
It's probably gonna like.
It can't hurt to monitor them.
I really don't think like if exactly, it can't hurt to monitor him, because if you know you go and like exactly like if he starts freaking out and he's shitting all over the place with like blood pouring out his ass and stuff, that it's time to take him to the vet. But like the thing said, like, there's dogs, and it's true, dogs are constantly eating everything.
Yeah.
Every fucking thing. Right, so
has anybody you made that Facebook chat which puts everything in one place, which is actually a great idea. Has anybody reached out to you about a t-shirt or no?
I added I don't know if you saw Dominic
yeah, she responded some.
She posted
oh no, I didn't see
interested.
that. Okay.
She didn't post on the actual status or in the group chat, but she's just like, oh, cool, thanks, right? Whatever.
Okay, yeah, and in the group she said, I thought she said awesome or something. Yeah.
Yeah, she just said something like thank you or whatever.
Okay.
In the group.
Yeah.
Right? But
it's I mean it's I don't know, been I think 3 posts on each platform. And it's been a month or so. I think we've given enough people enough time.
yeah, of course.
I think there's
so she was like, oh, I do artist stuff. She goes, if you guys need any help coming up with like other
nice, yeah,
logos for other t-shirts eventually too, then she's like, yeah, I'd be willing to help. Like, she does like actual like freelance artistry for like
so she's like a real deal Holyfield artist.
Yeah. But yeah, like she doesn't make like much money. That's what she said. Like, I haven't made much money, but she has had
nice.
Work done. Like work.
Yeah, no, that's
like,
awesome.
Oh, that's cool. Yeah.
And she's like a friend,
Yeah, she's
somebody
really,
you know in
really,
person,
really nice,
like in
too.
real life.
Well, no, I met her on ESO, but she's like my ESO
Okay.
bestie. like I know, like, like she's to the point where like I know her almost as personally as I know you, kind of thing.
Cool.
Yeah. So I was like, all right, cool. But yeah, she was like, oh yeah, she's like, I'll totally rock that shirt. Rock that shirt. I was like, okay, cool.
Nice.
She's a bigger girl, so I'm thinking that she'll probably need a bit bigger of a size.
Yeah, not a problem at all. As long as she knows what size that should be.
Yeah, of course. Yeah.
Actually.
And I added Too Short to the chat too, because I know that I figured it was just easier to just, if anybody on Facebook mentions something, I'll just we'll just add them to the chat, and then when you want to,
yeah, Too Short said something to me
when you want to get
in
the final
Discord, I think, that he would be interested.
Yeah, if you want to get the the final thing will get everybody to write down their sizes there, and then you could like, you know, see it all in one place or whatever. Well, of the Facebook people, anyways. Like if somebody contacts over Discord, then
Right, that it is what it is. Yeah.
it'll be on Discord, but at least you can organize all the Facebook requests.
Yeah, I mean, people, I don't really seem interested. John said he's interested, but he doesn't have any money for it. Said if he had extra money or something, which kind of sucks because like he's been around since the beginning, so it'd be nice for him to get a shirt. But I'm not making a whole lot of money. I have less responsibilities than he does, but he probably makes more money than I do.
Yeah. Oh, he I know he doesn't make minimum wage. I know he makes more than minimum wage. So
he's got a.
I don't know
I'm
if you're making
more than minimum wage, but I'm making $10 an hour before taxes. Oh shit! You have a vault key? But yeah, so he's
We got some good news. We're in the next ring.
damn. He's got like a niche job. So,
By the way, what's the minimum wage in
Not 100% sure. I think it's like 7 something. Maybe it's broken $8. I don't know.
Okay.
It's not super
I
good.
was just curious.
Supply bin here.
So, like, you live on like of the Philadelphia is like right on the edge of right on the edge of Pennsylvania, right? Like
Yeah.
it's like you're almost closer to New Jersey than you are to New Jersey and New York than you are to...
Philadelphia is on borders the Delaware River, which separates Pennsylvania and New Jersey. So yeah.
Okay, yeah. See, I know a little bit about that kind of shit. Like when I was younger, I traveled a little bit around around America and stuff like that, but I never like I never retained all
and
of
also
the
when you're
knowledge of
younger,
the
it's
shit.
kind of you're not really trying to retain it. You know what I mean? It's just like.
Well, it wasn't that I wasn't young. Like, don't get me wrong, I wasn't young. I was, it was right after high school.
Okay.
So I was set 18.
Okay. Old enough to have fun. I'll
Yeah, I guess so.
definitely take that.
Okay. How do I get there? Someone better fuck up so I can plug them. Wow.
You're making it weird, buddy.
Okay, why?
Round 2, beginning ring countdown.
We have the benefit. We are inside the ring. Let's check out this way.
I don't know how to get that one. Does this building have a downstairs? How do you get...
Shotgun bolt here. Level 3.
I thought I just heard footsteps.
I need the help up.
Need a double tap. Okay, buddy, let's see if I can find you a double tap. their partner. We'll do that.
Working for the man every night and day. The wheels gonna keep on turning.
Barrel stabilizer here. Level 2.
There's gotta be. There's so many things under the city. I wonder if there's like a tunnel system or.
30 seconds.
What are you
Rings
playing?
close.
Mafia 3.
That was a good game. I enjoyed that. Is there a piece of shit in blood yet?
I've been in the mood
No,
to
I
just
can't
kind of.
show you something Katara just said.
Rings around the corner.
Who just said?
From Project Runway, Katara.
Oh.
Eyes out for 'em.
It's the most insane thing I've ever heard.
Oh, I thought, okay, something he said. Okay. Well, he's like super Japanese. He's like,
Rings moving.
he's very Japanese.
Oh man, shit.
Yeah,
Your
this
friend?
contestant on Project Runway.
Oh.
He like made a comment about something about somebody being African.
No,
Or like
that's
her-
very African
yeah, her-
style.
She was a black woman who was doing it, right?
Yeah.
Yeah, a black woman was making a dress that was very African in style, and he said that, and then he like stopped himself and leaned in, and said
To the
to the producer
producer.
like, "Is that racist?" And then they like kept all that into the show. So
You know what? There's there's a thing that
There's
I guess you consider he's my he's an adopted brother of mine, I guess. My mom adopted him, but like my mom adopted him technically so that his mom like so that he could wouldn't be put into this like the children's aid
Okay.
services. But so like
Gotta help out.
by legal terms he is my
what is he?
adopted
Why is he
brother,
bringing?
but by all rights,
He wrote a piano
like,
song
or
for his
whatever
runway show.
it is,
And
I never
to
really
what
considered
inspired
him
him.
my
And
brother.
that's what he
was just
said.
kind of,
And then my
think
favorite part is
he
there's
was
just like
15
5
when my mom
seconds of silence
adopted
and
him,
Tim's just like,
right?
wonderful.
So he was just my brother's best friend, but he's a black guy, and he
I
told
found
me
this dead cat on the street.
he told me
And after I
one
buried
time
it, I
that
put my ear to the ground, and
if you have
that's
to
what
ask-
it sounded like.
it's racist. If you have to ask, then it's racist. If you have to ask if it's racist, then it's racist, and don't say it.
Right, and that is a great motto to live by. Like they say, like,
Yeah.
oh, if you have to ask how much it costs, you can't afford it. Yeah, if you even think that it might be
Exactly.
offensive, it's probably offensive to somebody. Yeah.
It's offensive. Exactly. Right? So like,
Right.
don't say it.
100%. Like he was like just trying to. I mean, he's like super Japanese, so he was just trying to like. He said something, and then like he's asking the producer, like, "Can I say that, or does that sound racist?" And I don't think it's racist. I don't think it's. And that's probably why they put it in, because it's not racist, and it's kind of like a cute little Japanese man, like. But he's trying to be considerate of like.
It's very African style. African style
Right,
is
it's a
style,
thing,
right?
yeah,
So
like-
it's not really.
If you see, like, even saying that, you can picture a dress that would be that style. What's up, Grim?
Yeah.
What's going on, fellas?
Same shit, different day. Oh, no.
Sick.
Sick as dog.
Yeah. What was it?
Rings around the corner. 10 left.
Yesterday when I woke up, my sinuses like kind of hurt a little bit and felt a little stuffy. And then today, now it's like my chest and throat, and I have like this cough. I think it's from this bitch at work, man. So I worked with her on the bar Saturday.
I was gonna say, you make over there or something?
No, but well, you know, we're close ass quarters, and we're always talking to each other, you know. And then,
Yeah, fair enough.
especially when we're talking about customers, we gotta like, we're talking trash on them like assholes, you know. You gotta be real close. But anyway, so then yesterday, that's when I first started not feeling good. And yesterday, when I worked with her yesterday and the day before, right? And yesterday, when I get to work, she had to leave right away because she felt sick, and she said her whole family's sick, her husband and her kid. And so I'm like, she definitely gave me the AIDS. And plus, since I've been hitting the ball for like a week straight, I got AIDS.
Yeah, I mean, the best way to get the flu.
It's real.
The best way to get the flu is to hit it raw dog and bail.
Yeah, like listen,
her
listen here, I'll hit it raw dog.
Yeah.
I got limits.
Yeah.
You know?
I got standards, bitch.
Got standards.
Yes.
It's a little too intimate
Right.
for me to kiss somebody. No.
Yo, that's a real thing though. Hookers.
Yeah, I know.
I've heard of hookers that'll be like, yeah, you know, you can fuck me this, that, the other thing, but no kissing. It's too intimate. I saved that for my boyfriend.
I mean, it's also they don't want to get anything. If you have herpes or something on the face, no one's gonna hire them if they have. No one's gonna hire them if they got herpes face.
But if you give them herpes vagina,
right? And you kind of, if you're getting a hooker, you're kind of agreeing to that. Like, you can't be mad at a hooker for.
You're kind of agreeing to get all the.
Can't be mad at a hooker for giving you AIDS or herpes. Yeah.
Yeah, I wasn't mad when it happened to me.
Because you're a reasonable fella.
I'm reasonable.
You're a good
feller. I'm gonna keep this flat on.
Good fella.
I am. I'm a good feller who accepts lots of sexually transmitted diseases.
Yeah. I accept them as payment.
It's okay.
Visa, MasterCard, STDs.
It's like Pokemon, gotta catch them all.
Yeah, you gotta catch them all. You hold on to them, they increase in value.
Yep.
And blisters. And next thing you know, you're rich.
Yep. And they come out of your balls. Yeah.
Yeah, that's it. Yeah.
They gotta be right here.
So,
we're about to win this game, I think.
Oh shit. I'm dropping now. My team's jumping the bumblefuck. Like on the edge of the map, somewhere I don't think I ever dropped before. By the train tracks, there's like one of those towers in like the very corner. Like probably opposite diagonally of hell. And there's just one of those towers with a zip line that goes up, and that's like it. And you have to run for like a year to get to civilization.
Where the fuck did they shoot from? What? I was behind that fucking rock. Oh my god, get our teammate up, get her. There's only one of them. And they're pushing. Don't lose this. I was behind that rock, I shouldn't have went down. Yeah, it's just one of them. Just one person. If they fucking wipe us. Yeah, I'm coming. Yeah, get me up. Good shit. Here we go. It's 3-on-1. I'm getting up. Yeah, I didn't even have time to heal. Our team won. Yeah, we are the champion of the arena.
You youth of the nation.
We are youth in Asia.
I just made it into town without a vest. I just wanna do something besides run in the fucking forest before I die. Come on, mofos.
Come on, feel
Of the
noise.
mofos getting
Girls,
shot in their
rock
face.
your boys.
Alright. Sorry, teammates.
Sly King just invited me to a
Shoot my
game.
gun
I'm
all
sorry,
crazy
bro.
like.
My dance card is full.
My dance party's full. Sorry, too many dancers
Yeah.
on this
I don't got time for you. No, stop inviting me. I know, like, it was cool. We just won. You want to, like, carry this momentum over.
Like we went to.
I only
Turkey
did
on our team.
199
Come
damage,
on,
but
mechanic.
I was smart player. I did smart looting. I did like give I didn't steal any loot. One dude shot a thing down. I was there first. I was closer, and I just like let him pop it open and loot it. I just ran right past it. So I'm a good person. So they probably weren't a good person on their team.
I'm really a good person.
Yeah,
I
I'm a
swear.
good person. Yes, it's true.
Disregard
I'm
all
a
the
good
bad
person.
stuff I do.
Better than you.
How about
I'm
you?
a good person.
Yeah, we're gonna sing.
It's a real song, man. It's a real song. Let me see if I can find it. Crazy ex-girlfriend.
Let's sing a song about how weird we
We're a
are.
weird person. Yes, it's true. You're a weird person, just like you. Crazy ex-girlfriend.
Oh my god, dude. I'm literally just running around shooting my gun and I cannot find a person.
Let's generalize about men.
Shooting the gun all wild.
Ba, 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 ba.
Shooting the gun all
I
wild.
would say Landon is such a retarded ass place.
Ba, now, the answer. She mad. We hate them. Bum, 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 bum. And at all. Not more alcohol. There's a bunch of blanket statements. Generalize about men. Generalize about them.
Okay, I'm like far shit from my team. Care package about to fall.
It's all of them. Most of those guys who generalize about men. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum. All men want to have sex. And all 3 billion men are like this. 0.6 million men. Actually stunted.
I just
Stunted.
had sex and it felt so good. Yeah. Let me put my pinky
Generalize
down.
about them. Generalize about them. Let them not admit. You know and then. Generalize about them.
Oh my god, nobody's been here yet.
Alright, I'm gonna start a new game.
Alright.
Kids, I can't pay anymore.
Got this L
I gotta play the game, puppy. Daddy's at work. I can't pay you.
Motherfucker. Man.
You're real bowling fun.
Oh, okay. They found enemies. I just want to melt people with the L-Star.
I mean, is that too much to ask? I just want to melt people with the L-Star.
It's really not. I haven't had one in a long time. Just let me murder fools with an L-Star.
You've done it now. On the shoulder. Becca.
Right.
Yeah, we're flying in now. I'm gonna land train now, so it's gonna be over super quick. I think my whole team's landing train.
I forgot that All-Star overheats. It overheated like almost instantly.
Yeah.
Before it even killed a dude.
Oh, I just missed the train. And so did like 50 other people. All I'm doing. By. I'm getting by.
Do you guys ever get random like urges that you just like to drink like a whole gallon of juice?
Sometimes I get very thirsty, and I'll just be like, dude. And it's usually once I start drinking, and I'm like, oh man, like this is so good, and it's like kind of quenching my thirst. I need this whole thing of orange juice right now.
Yeah. Exactly, right? Like, oh goodness, you just like, you start to just be like, I need like this and I need like all of it and I need it in abundant amounts because, yeah. Even if I can't drink it all, I want to like try to drink like a whole bottle of juice at once.
I'm 35, that's enough. I'm gonna drop this prowler.
But I don't have any juice.
Yeah, I'm big on juice. Big juice drinker.
That kind of blows. I drink more soda than I drink juice, but I get the urges that I just want to drink juice. Oh, actually, it doesn't matter. It could be juice or...
Damn, I had no fucking shield. He melted me instantly. 159 damage, 0 kills. Not a good game. It's a make over. So that was a quick game. Are you in the game now?
Send me an invite.
Mickey, you're offline or something. It's not showing you my thingy, majig. I'll just invite the party.
He's hot.
I just sent it out.
Oh, no, I did. Suckers. I'm not popping out of this.
Suck ass majuckas, motherfucker.
Sucker.
They brought me back, and as like the respawn chips like pulling in, it's just gonna like drop my box on them or something. Gotcha.
My heart goes tippity tap 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 when I hold your hand, but I know there's another guy you fancy more. So even though I'm not the one
You adore.
why not
Settle for me. Just settle for me.
Are you enjoying it, Simon? She's staring at the screen. She's fascinated. I don't know why, but she's fascinated with me playing video games.
That's good. There's gonna be a lot of video games in our future. Settle for me. No.
He's like, what is this? She barks at she barks at me when I'm choosing games though. Like when I'm moving around the screen, the cursor moves and it trips her out.
Take us to the promised land, Grim.
Guess where the promised land is, motherfuckers.
It's the hangy boxes in the sky.
It's on that mountain. It's on that mountain. Or hitting the mountain. on the way
Ooh, I
to
hope
change
so.
road.
I
I feel like we've been doing that. Kind of
Hidden mountains. Oh, 2 people were landing in the car I was going to.
Alright, sorry, teammate. Oh, they finally broke up. Someone else here, they missed my box.
Yeah, 2 people went into the box I was going into, so I landed on the roof and zipped over. Cat. Not that I see.
Here?
Sounds like somebody's on my cart.
I heard somebody zipping, so they might be in your car. Oh, there's somebody right here. I need like meds.
Yeah, I'm gonna need some too. Shit, I'm gonna have to drop this fucking prowler too. I don't have any bullets for it.
Cool.
Alright.
I'm down. You guys up here. Right, would have been perfect time for him to start his run. Bitch!
That was a pretty wicked.
Shit, bitch.
Wow, I can't believe I did that. That was a pretty wicked.
Are there heals in here? Shit, I need heals. Fuck. Yeah, no, I'm good at shield cells. No, I need syringes is what I need. No.
Shield cells or no?
I'm good on that. Thank you.
Our teammate probably didn't know. Oh well.
Okay, he can take that if he wants. A shit show. Oh, I hear a drone above my head. Where's that? Can't tell which way it's flying. Oh, I wanted that should have dropped it, motherfucker.
Blue hat.
Yeah, I have one of those apparently. Alright, I got syringes out of that though. No.
Energy
Nope.
ammo or
I just dropped it. I didn't have enough of it. Oh yeah, I see them. They're running to the zip line.
They're about to zip up.
Here they come. What? They're up here. They're up here.
Did any of them
The
drop
only
down
one
yet?
came up. All right, the second one. All right, it's just one up here and they're down. I smoked us to give us some.
Oh, now I can't see them as they're zipping up. Fuck.
Fuck, their jump pad is fucking me up, man. It kept interrupting my fucking, wouldn't let me heal. So it kept popping me off and I would have to grab the zip line to come back. Somebody zipping up? Fuck, man. Damn it.
Oh, yeah.
Very frustrating. I hate not being able to find heals.
Yeah. You still there, Zed?
Yeah, I'm here. I'm playing a Mafia 3, so I'm kind of just in a
Is that
focus.
going with the black dude you play as or whatever?
Yeah.
It's in like Louisiana? Yeah, I played that. It's pretty good.
Patrick Mahomes here to tell you Head & Shoulders is a great offense. And I'm Troy Polamalu. Head & Shoulders is great defense. It's
Trying to
offense. Defense.
survive right now.
Head & Shoulders. Offense for great hair.
Man. Woosah.
I love Mafia games.
Yeah, that's pretty good. I think I played maybe the second and third. I'm not sure.
Played all three of them, but I don't remember.
You played all three?
Like, I don't remember much of the first one.
Was the first one with a white guy?
I think the
Yeah.
first two were.
The first two were with the same guy,
Yeah.
and the third one, he's in it as well, but he works for you in the third one.
Yeah, okay.
I guess the
on
big
land?
building, so there's plenty of loot.
Alright.
Alright. I need to shake off that last game. It's got me aggravated. Oh shit. Coming. Ping them? Oh, they're over there, okay. I see where you're shooting at.
Yeah, it's devotion.
Oh, yeah. What's up?
He doesn't have a towel.
Crowd,
Our teammates just like running around and looting, like not giving a shit about.
I need a vest. I hear somebody.
Oh, over here. Oh, there's two of them.
Did 130.
I'm down. Fuck, man.
Give me your vest, bitch.
Woot woot. Fun stuff.
Teammate, why are you running away? There's somebody right here.
Because they just want to loot. They were looting during the first shootout.
God damn, what the fuck, teammate? Oh, God. What, they running over, like, loot your box?
No, he's dead now. I don't know what he was doing. I was watching him.
Because he literally were fighting somebody
Yep.
and he just runs away. And like past where they were at the bottom, they could have easily killed him.
Yeah, it wasn't you. The game is fun.
Yeah, why are you so dressed up?
Kim's
whose
mom's
birthday
birthday dinner.
Yeah, yeah,
William
where'd you get
Penn. Up in like
Where's that?
I don't know. It's probably considered.
Go see then. Yeah, you can go see.
Probably
Go
what?
see.
I don't know. It's not far from Montgomeryville. Yep. I don't know what the area is. Nah,
like
it's
downtown,
out in the
huh?
suburbs. What's up, babe? I can't hear you.
I left my phone in there.
You left your phone in here. Okay. I got it over there. Ratata.
My boyfriend had nothing to love apartment with our car.
I'm gonna land 2 floors from the top.
Okay. I'm gonna land.
It was a
Top of
99.
it.
I missed it. 1 floor up. Where did you
I'll land
land?
on the
Man?
roof.
Floor above me?
I'm going down to the first floor.
Okay. There's a 99 there.
I mean, I
Wait, I hear somebody. It sounds like they're right where you landed.
Yeah, I heard footsteps too, but teammate was up there, so I don't know.
They're like right here.
Somebody down here? Yep.
Down the bottom.
Was it the culmination of a lifetime of kleptomania, or were you doing it to stick the proper manufacturing industry?
No, they came
Damn.
to my apartment and I couldn't afford a sweater, so I stole it.
Oh, hey, I stole a sweater too. I got 2 months. How long are you in for?
Yeah, I got like a sniper stock out of that.
Do you need shields? I have shield cells.
No, I got one. I got a 4-day sniper stock or sniper scope out of that box.
Tell your story, tell your story.
Yeah, sure, I have a story. I'm in here for murder.
Juicy.
While I was driving, my daughter texted me that she was in the hospital, and I got so distracted that
hit a teenager who was crossing the street. He died.
Story, story, oh my God, with that story, 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 take away her chair.
I think I'm hearing somebody. It's not a team.
I'm over here.
Yeah, I got bounce pads. Ah, I hit the ceiling.
He was ironically just like me. And he tried to kill the man I loved, so I pushed him off a building.
135 to this one guy. There's two of them now. I don't have a thing. The Birdman. I'll do 135.
I'm fucking down.
Teammates.
Nah, he was here
getting Is that
fighting
what's
him.
going on?
Yeah.
That wasn't.
Making contact with enemy.
Yeah,
you down one
down
of
the
them
lifeline.
Yeah, well then the Birdman. Oh, he might have shields up by now.
Recharging shields. Fake them out with a decoy.
Oh, that ain't gonna
God
work.
damn it, man.
Go get him, teammate. From that far away? Damn. Must have been like, what? I don't even understand. That was a piece
Yeah.
of right? And I don't think he got hit up until that point. So that took away like his 100 shield and like 20 health in one hit from that far away. They were shooting through the walls,
Yep.
man. That's what happened.
Alright. I need to shake this.
Shake it.
Oh shit, I thought I'm all watching somebody else. I thought I thought he was respawning us. I was watching
What?
the other team. I thought that was our teammate respawning.
Oh. I was wondering when you saw him get back. Yeah, that's what I was talking about. He killed our teammate from like kind of far away with one peacekeeper shot, and he did at least 120 damage, I think. I don't know. I just feel like I could never get 120 damage from that far away with peacekeepers. Oh, so who's all going to Thanksgiving, Joe?
I think it's like Kate Helm, Kate Marquis, Ginny and Nicole. I don't know if like Brittany's going or
Who's got
yeah.
J-Jax?
Terrible accuracy. Are you? Oh my god. Ooh. Are you fucking kidding me? No.
Are you watching my screen?
Are you fucking kidding me?
I waited for that chick to go back to your box. I just waited there, and then when she got there, and then I just aimed down at her head because I dropped down from below. I aimed down her head and wasted her to a box.
You.
Yeah, yeah. Shit, what is this?
Set yourself free and finally do the things in life that you are destined for.
Yep, I'm being fucking shot out of here.
Oh, he got murdered all the way. Okay. I'm hearing somebody close it. I think they're behind this wall, maybe.
Step out the door, then back through the door. Sit on the floor and stare at the floor. Rock yourself until you feel okay. And carpe diem, carpe don't time to grab like by the
You just like bounced away.
And then it's time to seize the day. I wonder if the fridge needs cleaning. I haven't cleaned the fridge for a while. I'd hate to leave with a dirty fridge. Gonna get it on. Oh, there's a smidge. Maybe I should get in this fridge online. No, never mind. It's time to fly. Now I'll sit right here on my couch. Research fridges. I'm no slouch. It's getting dark. The time just got away. I could still go out. It's not too late. But first I need to masturbate to some porn, preferably male.
Yeah! Dude, shooting. This fast man as he runs away. Alright, I'm kind of far.
I'm missing all my shots.
I had to get. I know you. Yeah.
Oh yeah, there's fucking a couple of them.
Alright, I'm coming.
Alright, teammate. One left. Oh my god. I think I got one more game in me after this. Somebody's coming. Nice. Finally something's in a fucking Mozambique. Shit, I don't have the ammo to go double light.
Oh, is there more boxes somewhere?
Yeah, there's a bunch up here, but they're empty, I think. Oh no, there's a blue box there now.
What about the squad you guys just fought?
Yeah, that's the guy that you just came in and killed.
Oh, I thought you said there's one left though, so I assume.
Yeah,
there was
no, the guy that you just
more
came in and
or
killed
something.
was the last guy left.
Oh, he was the only guy.
Yeah, no, he had people with him.
I'm hearing somebody, I think. Oh, so that's what I'm saying. The boxes for this.
They were
Where are they?
down there. The one guy was killed down there.
Oh, all I saw was the guy at the very end the last guy. I don't see anything.
Yeah, somebody.
That's that box to the guy.
No,
And
there
that's
should
all I
have been
saw.
another. A box was.
Oh shit.
The box must have been completely emptied or something.
Too late. I'm out of here. Storms are brewing.
What?
Ooh, there's a box.
Spilled your juice? Bounty picks up spills quicker and is 2 times more absorbent than the leading ordinary brand. Bounty, the quicker picker.
You said you need a light ammo?
Yeah, I have 40. I'm okay for the next fight.
Well, here, take this. I don't have a light gun yet.
Yeah, I just didn't have enough. Do you have heavy?
I don't have a heavy gun, no.
They were by like the cave entrance. That's where they pinged.
I thought they'd run into the cave, yeah.
Yeah, they probably came out of the cave and went this way.
It's like fucking... Yeah, 40 more light bullets I found.
Yeah, I got 100 now. What are you running with?
Dumb guns, fucking havoc and a peacekeeper.
Thanks.
Looking for a heavy gun. I have like heavy bullets and a light heavy mag. A lot of shit's been looted. Yeah, I got a blue one. Wait,
Shoot
someone
at
shooting
teammate.
you?
They're up there though.
I'm hearing somebody right here. God, there's 2 of them right here.
Coming,
One guy's back here.
coming.
Yeah.
Oh,
Bullshit. I don't get it, dude. I was so far from that dude. I mean, I was already down, but he was doing 90 damage to the peacekeeper from like so far away. I don't understand how that's possible. That people are getting so much damage with the peacekeeper from far distance. I understand there's a lot of damage, but
I don't know if they have a choke on it. You can shoot really far.
Nah, but it was like, shoo, shoo, like he down the other dude, and then shoo right after shoots me from far shit away and almost completely killed me as I was crawling away.
I said leave it alone.
Zero. He said leave it alone.
What up,
bro.
gangsters?
Stop
What's
talking
up?
about it, man.
Damn. I feel like a jerk.
I feel like he made himself clear.
I've been better.
What's going on, man?
Not much. I applied for 2 jobs tonight. I was make myself go ahead and do it.
Yeah.
I figured I
What'd you
might as
apply
well
for?
do it on it. One tech support job for what I think is like a phone company or cable company or something for internet shit, I think. And another one that is some kind of tech support, but I think it's like a manufacturing company of some sort.
Yeah.
Oh crap, cool. I didn't push the button in time. Yeah, it might be okay. Neither one of them was, I don't think they're exactly what I was looking for, but I guess it's kind of hard to find that.
Did you have to go there to apply, or to apply online?
I applied online. They're both on Indeed.com, but Yeah.
On Indeed?
Yeah, but one of them lets you just apply with Indeed and just answer a couple of additional questions, you know? Well, they want you to take an assessment, but I'd already taken it, so I just told it, you know, give them my results. But the other one makes you make an account and do their little bullshit process, so you have to go in there and edit things and fix everything. It'll ask you to upload your resume, but you gotta fix shit that it didn't get correct, you know? But it wasn't no big deal, it just took a little while.
Yeah, I'm so not with it. I don't even know. I've never even been on Indeed or Monster or any of that shit. Fun.
This
I'll be
is the
right back, though.
first time for me.
You guys ever use, I think it's called Workopolis or something like that?
Workopolis? No.
I used to use that. Yeah, I don't know.
that sounds neat. It's a city where everybody does
Yeah,
nothing
it
but work.
sounds like fun. Except the superhero who clearly saves everybody from their office jobs.
Right.
So I don't know how many more games I have in me. I am super tilted.
Yeah, I know it's late as hell. I just figured I'd better get to it, or I ain't gonna get to it. Or I would have been.
Yeah, no,
on earlier.
absolutely. Alright, we're gonna go to hell then.
Besides regular jobs.
Hey, time get off me.
Do what?
Oh, my dog is jumping all over me. Oh. Come on. Get off.
Indescribable instant, the whole world falls away.
Oh, there's somebody else here. And they got a gun and I don't, and I'm dead. God,
Oh shit!
God damn it.
Oh, really?
Lay off. Oh shit!
God damn, where you at? Oh, fuck, already? Damn.
I got one guy down. He almost killed me.
Alright.
Siren, it's past your bedtime. Go sleep. Midnight.
I'm trying to get to
one?
you, Grim.
I think I'm hearing somebody, I'm not sure.
Yeah, I hear somebody else. I'm with you right
In here.
That was nice
I think like
shoes.
100 and something to it. That's why she's running like a bitch.
So Joe, you know
Back
how
inside, back inside, back
Right.
inside.
I'm coming, I'm with you.
went looking through the freezers to see if there was any frozen juice, and I found frozen juice.
Nice. Come on.
Those frozen
Tell me when
juice
you're done
boxes
looting that, dude.
are pretty good sometimes.
Think whatever you want. There's a Havoc Wingman, heavy rounds. My second gun's the Eva. Not a
Yeah, I'll take
big
that
fan,
Wingman.
but... Alright, someone's coming in this door.
Alright.
Hey, Siren. Siren,
I'm with you.
what are you doing?
Probably a whole damn squad. Oh shit.
Got one.
Get off.
Oh yeah, I got another. That was that squad. That's how he does it in the hood.
Yeah, I'm bringing Joe back in now. For a loot.
Alright. I'm trying to get a heal if I can find that bitch.
Thank you.
Yeah.
I'm hearing somebody else, I think.
Okay.
I don't see anybody.
Oh, yeah, right here.
Okay. Shit. Come here, badass. You wanted the bot. Come get
Oh,
it.
she had a fucking gun.
Yeah.
She punched me a couple times. Turns out she had a gun the whole time.
That's weird. She was trying to figure out how to take out the whole crew there.
I don't have any deals. I have a couple of shield cells. No,
Here, I
think
got a med
I
kit.
think there was little ones.
Yeah, I just picked it here. I just picked up two.
Joe, you got a med kit for it.
Well, I'll give you this med kit.
Thank you. The
use some
Go ahead and
light
take the
ammo.
shield
Yeah,
cell.
the ring. It said the ring isn't closed. No, the ring's not too far.
Oh, that's hot.
Some energy ammo. There's a devotion and Rang Mang in there.
You know, please.
Damn, that frozen orange juice is too hot. Too hot for human consumption.
Oh, I'm drinking tea now.
I have a 301 with 0 bullets.
There's a
Yeah. I only have 40 of
fucking,
them.
you know, big
You wanna
heavy
fucking,
gun.
you know, bro?
Take shit out.
Alright, how far do we gotta go? Not too bad.
Woo! Yeah, I can throw us a zip when we get back together here.
Okay, so this is not about us
Anybody have
I'm
energy
moving.
gun?
Oh, we're both moving towards you.
There's 20 in that box. I dropped like 30 shotgun cells. Yeah, I'm starting to move the way of where we need to go for the storm. Yeah, really? Are you, none of you guys paying attention? I pinged the blue helmet and vest.
Oh shit! I saw that helmet earlier, and I was maybe I didn't.
I think it's in that room there. I think it's right there. Body shield and helmet in the same room.
Oh shit! Well, I see the helmet in a box.
Well,
I got
it was purple. Purple vest, blue helmet, but I took the purple.
Oh, I didn't see a purple. Okay, okay.
To be clear, yeah. So I don't know if you ran that way, but that's hard to miss.
No, I did get I got the blue helmet in the box. If there was another one, I didn't get it.
No, that was just in a room for me.
Oh, okay. Yeah, there's your blue one. Joe.
Gosh, should we fly? I already started running.
Oh, we're right here.
I ended up getting this key called Spring Up.
Oh, we're not going to get burned yet. Okay.
It's like...
Plus it's more covert.
It's like 3 times... Like... It literally feels like I drank like a whole pot of coffee if I drank like 1 cup of stuff. It's just the tea. It's
strong ass shit. Turbocharger.
It's just the tea, but yeah, well, it's called Spring Up, right? But I don't know, like, geez, like it's
standard
really
stock.
Circle
sight. Keep a fight. You want to get pushed in on that shit?
Sure.
Not yet.
Oh, they're
Joe's
right
way
there on that
behind.
roof. Somebody's on the roof
I'm
there.
portaling in.
I'm coming with you, but it's just 2 of us.
I think they're the one that was they were escaping.
Okay.
They just got somebody
Oh
else.
shit.
Yeah, I wasn't there.
Oh, I hit one a couple of times with the Wang Mang. They're hurt anyway.
One's down.
Well, one
yeah.
just got brought back to life.
I think you
That's
only
what I
have one
walked
more.
in on.
Oh.
But he was already
okay.
up. So I just got fucked up.
He's back there charging his peacekeeper.
Why do you do that? You're weird. You're a weird dog. Yes, you're a weird dog. Okay, stop.
Yeah. Yeah, you're
There
a
it
warrior.
is. There it is, cannon.
There's a shit ton of boxes to loot.
Damn, look at all the boxes.
Mm-hmm.
Oh, man. Needed that to get me back into this.
Hell yeah. I was starting
People
to
are
say,
fighting at the far side of this big building.
Okay.
Far side of the hangar. Like right on the back edge.
Alright, there's a vault key in here I'm grabbing. I don't know.
Like right back there.
Picked up a vault key.
Okay.
45 seconds. Rings far. Energy ammo here.
Oh shit, my bad. I started taking your shit, Zero.
Oh,
That
go
was my
ahead.
box.
I'm getting shit out of these other boxes.
Okay.
Take what you
Well,
want.
I just took your guns and then realized.
Yeah, I don't mind.
So.
I'm getting good shit.
Okay.
Alright, if we want to push the vault, I don't know.
Shield cell here.
Oh, I could definitely use that. How did I miss that? That's not, oh, it was right there.
Whatever you
It's
guys
right.
want.
It's just south of the train yard's the only one that's still in it.
There's decent shit in these
We should
boxes.
move. Rings moving.
Yeah, I'm coming. Oh
Yeah.
shit, the wall's coming in. Is there a light clip in
Not
one
that
of
I
them?
saw.
Did you notice?
Here, I'm setting a portal.
Bag. Shit. Okay, that'll help. Perfect. Portal time. Shit.
All right. I'll try. Oh shit, I don't have a zip line. Oh, you got a portal. Okay, okay.
Barrel stabilizer here.
Wait,
Level 2.
where the fuck the portal at?
Right here. Right behind you.
Oh, okay. Forklift blocking view. Good portal. Good
Oh,
portal.
I already have a stabilizer apparently. I don't know.
Oh shit.
Oh shit, is this the second one? Yeah,
Yep.
that's why I'm getting so fucked up.
I've got a heal. I've
Oh
almost
damn,
got
I
a
only
zip
have 2
line.
syringes. I'm gonna fucking die.
Yeah, use them.
Shit, somebody's being brought back right here too. Fuck.
Here, I'm gonna throw us a zip.
Alright, yeah.
I've got a syringe. Oh, I'm
Take
gonna fucking
me
die.
to the promised land.
I'm
I
gonna
can't
die, but
come
I've got
back
it.
where I am.
I'm crawling. I'm crawling towards
Yeah,
you.
crawl as far as
Just
you
go
can.
to
Joe might
safety.
have some heals from the boxes and shit.
Like-
I made it. But I don't know.
Yeah.
Right
I
here.
can't heal myself.
There's people here, Grim.
I've got
Grim, there's people here.
shitloads of heals
They just
on me.
brought back.
Where are you? Where are you?
Syringe here.
Ah, okay.
Actually, here.
Can you get
Do that. Do that instead. Do that
No,
instead.
do what you gotta do to survive. Look, when you get safe, my body is right along my zip line, and I've got a ton of heals on it.
Okay.
You got a bunch of heals on it?
Yeah, but I've got a zip line that goes right to me, dude. So no need to run into the storm.
What zip line?
hop
I
on
don't
the
see a zip
line.
line that goes right to you.
Grim, show him where that zip line is that you came in on.
Yeah, Joe has the thing. You see the end of it? It's like right here. You see where
Oh,
I'm
I
at?
didn't know it was that far away.
You see that
Yeah,
yellow
alright, I'm
line
going.
back there, Joe? But you got that thing that makes you, invulnerable for a bit, so that'll help. I didn't take all the heals he has.
I've got tons of heals, yeah.
Big one, you got big ones?
I don't know, I got syringes and cells, maybe batteries.
If only you have syringes, run back. Syringes barely get you above the shit, so.
Good job.
And this way, you can crawl back and worst case scenario, and I'll get you out.
Hell yeah, good job.
Nice.
All right. So that vault, we're not gonna be able to get to that vault. I'm gonna drop the key.
There's only one.
Zimmer
respawn
Tracks, what's
here.
up? I'm looking at my short vid, search Zimmer Tracks on YouTube. We'll do, buddy. I'll take a look at it.
Yeah, there's no vaults in here. Yeah, drop that key. We can't use that shit. Alright, you wanna
Yeah,
get
where's
try
the
to
closest
get to the
zero? Ping the thingy
respawn
imaging.
thing? There's only one left. I pinged
Oh,
it.
that's
It's
that
the-
dot?
it's
Okay.
the yellow mark.
350 meters. Alright.
Yeah.
Yeah, don't get killed, bring me back.
Dude, that's how we roll, bro.
Well, that's true.
G as
can be.
can be.
Only 3 other squads left.
Heads up. Care package coming.
Care package coming in right on us. I don't know if you want to wait for it.
There's only 2 other squads.
Alright.
I'll
Alright.
just push forward.
I got a
to this
portal that
thing.
we can use when it's time to go.
That seems like further than 300 meters. Maybe it's because Joe's got maximum fisheye engaged.
Well, no, he pinged it, so I. Oh yeah, maybe that makes sense. Oh shit.
Oh shit!
They're
I'm
on the
getting
roof.
shot from somewhere. Oh, they're
Oh
above
damn!
me.
Yeah, on top of your building.
I'm running back towards you. Yeah, that's
Joke's on you. Joe just has maximum butt.
jokes on D.
Engaged.
Maximum what?
They're on the roof. They're on the roof. We need to get to. They just zipped. They just threw a zip there.
Yeah, they just threw a zip on to Joe. Don't forget your Bernie sticks.
Oh, I don't have any burning sticks on me. I kind of want to check that care package. If there's a Kraber on it, it'll give us an advantage.
Oh yeah, true. Yeah, there's no way to
still
get me
another
up at this
squad
point.
left.
I don't. So you might as well
So the
be in
third
survival
squad's
mode.
probably after
Well, they'll
us now.
probably go after them. Here, I'm gonna go up to the center. The light just went off on that care package.
Oh shit!
Yep,
Let's
they're
go
here. They're about
fuck
to
'em
zip up to me.
Enemy over there.
Ah, I jumped off. There we go.
Yeah. What? Who the hell was shooting Joe?
So we are right between two squads. So this kind of sucks.
Less than 30 seconds.
Grim hurt both of them.
Yeah, they both
Yeah.
should be close to be going
Yeah.
down. Yeah, well, the other squad's
Way to
here
go.
now.
Need to recharge my shields.
Man, that other damn squad got the best placement.
Patching myself up.
There's no respawns. I'm gonna go smoke a cigarette. I'll be back.
You sound like you need one.
Oh my god, my fucking accuracy, man.
Oh.
That's
You were
wow.
shooting,
That's the,
you were shooting really
definitely.
good though. It just a minor deviation.
That's such a cool
What's
game
that?
tag.
What is it?
Thunder
Chaps.
Chaps. Thunder. Thunder. Thunder Chaps home.
Sounds like a power bottom.
I would say so.
Oh god.
Alright, I'm gonna get another drink because I gotta take some aspirin after that shit.
Okay. You sick?
No, I just have a fucking headache from this game. Just like really had a bad game. Yeah, we couldn't find any heals, and I just like really stressed me out. And I was on tilt. That was like game.
Oh yeah.
That was
I
like the
understand,
second game Grim was in, so maybe it was like my 5th game. And I've been on tilt ever since, and I've been really trying to pull back from it. But I'm having a hard ass time.
I understand, man. It'll piss you off sometime. Sometime I can only take a couple of games before I cut the Xbox
so.
off.
So yeah, I'm gonna go grab this. I'll be right back.
All right. What you playing, Zed?
BRB, chat.
Nothing right now. I'm looking through my games.
Perusing the collection.
Yeah. I just literally played Mafia 3 all day long, so...
So it's a pretty fun game. The Mafia series looks fun. I've never tried it.
Yeah, it's pretty fun, yeah.
It's kind of like a gangster era GTA in a way, isn't it? Or is it a little...
Yeah.
Is it not quite?
Kind of. Kind of, yeah.
Where's Mafia 3 set?
It's, reimagination of New Orleans.
Okay, that's kind of cool. I've never been to New Orleans. I'd like to go sometime, like go to Mardi Gras or something.
It's called New Bordeaux, but yeah, it's a reimagination of like New Orleans kind of thing.
Rockstar doesn't make Mafia, does they? Do they?
No. 2K makes Mafia.
Oh, okay. Okay. Yeah, 2K's got some good games.
Yeah, puppy, you're free. You're free, puppy. All right, I'm back. Is Grimbo back?
Grim's still soothing his cough with a cigarette.
Well, I'm gonna leave party and send you an invite.
Because that sounds like it works.
Because I only got like one more game. I didn't realize it was almost 1 o'clock. So.
Oh,
I actually had one friend of mine.
It is late.
Oh god, my asthma. I had this one guy I was working with being like, oh, my asthma's acting up. I need to go have a cigarette.
Are you serious? That's hilarious.
Your asthma's acting up?
Yeah, Kim has asthma and smokes like a chimney. Well, she doesn't smoke like a chimney. That's an exaggeration. She probably smokes a pack a day. Yeah.
But she smokes.
Yeah.
Whoa, a pack a day? Is this what we call minor asthma?
This is what we... yeah, she's had it like her... I don't know. For years. 10 or 15 years. So... She puffs on an inhaler and then she puffs on her cigarette. There are times when she like takes her inhaler so she can go smoke a cigarette. But she finds it normal.
Well, awesome. Cigarettes are addictive, so I kind of understand. I've smoked for years.
Yeah, no, I get addiction. But whatever. It's
yeah,
it's
sure.
a bit,
That's just funny. It's just kind of funny to think about hitting an inhaler and smoking a cigarette.
That's how she lives life.
I have a friend who like has really bad breathing, like asthma thing, and he'll smoke like a bong, like smoke marijuana through a bong, and then he's gotta hit his inhaler after he takes a bong hit because his bongs are so rough.
Yeah, man, damn. Yeah, that's a bunch of tar hitting you even with a bong. Or at least a bunch of smoke.
Oh man. Alright, so this is probably my last. Well, this is my last game, so let's make it a good one, Zero.
Yeah, let's do it.
Yeah.
You work tomorrow, Drew?
8 to 2, I think. So instead of they are.
Oh,
so my work is super crazy. They. I don't know when they found out, but there's 4 trucks this week: Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, and Thursday. Today's well, first of all,
Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday,
Friday's truck. Because of the move that they were doing, they were moving stuff around the store. They didn't have shelving space to empty the tanks, which are like the shelving units on wheels that we unload the truck and put them on the tanks. We open the boxes and whatever, put them on the tanks. We didn't have the tanks because they were full of stuff from like Wednesday or from whatever, Thursday's truck, or Tuesday's truck. Whatever, and then they couldn't put the stuff out because they didn't have shelves because of the move. Which, like, they knew this was coming. They should have done this before Christmas season started, I think. But because when Christmas season comes, we just ramp up the amount of stuff we get in. So we needed, and we knew that there was a truck coming Monday, so the plan was just to pull out all of the stuff and palletize the rest of the truck as much as we can. So we just pulled it out, put it on pallets.
Thank you.
And then so there's 2 pallets, so there's 3 lines, and there's 2 pallets set up at each line. Plus the line is full of shit. And then today we go in and we have another truck today that's 1,400 fucking pieces. It was like 1,391 or something. But like the line is still full. We still have pallets. So I asked the guy, like the supervisor of the back, I'm like, hey Kenan, so what's the game plan? Are we going to move? Are we gonna work on the pallets or are we gonna work on a line? He's like, well, we gotta work on a line because this other truck is pulling up, and so we need to be able to start emptying that because we have another truck again tomorrow. So it's like, okay, so we're doing that, but like we're super crammed because there's pallets full of boxes around us. Like we hardly have any room to work. And then, and on top of all that, I was scheduled to noon today. The other people who are normally 9 to 2, the part-timers, were scheduled 8 to 1. And then Kenan, who's the backroom coordinator, he was scheduled to 8 to 4, like a full day for him. But like, there's no one gonna be back there to help him process any of the stuff. So that truck, I doubt they got much done. It didn't seem like we got much done by noon when I left. And then,
have you asked them yet? You know what happens when this truck comes in and the line's full and the pallets are full and the tanks.
Well, the tanks we had a couple. They weren't completely empty, but we had some space on some tanks. They were able to get to them a little bit over the weekend.
Oh, okay.
So we had right. So that's what we were doing. We were processing the line onto the tanks, just a little bit of space we had, and we were just ignoring the pallets, like working around them. Oh shit.
Oh, he's in a fight.
They're shooting from the construction building also?
Somebody fired at me from the second. Oh, okay. Maybe that's... Oh, shit. I think he killed the guy.
Yeah, he's executing him now.
Yeah, he's executing him.
So it's just like... It's just so fucking nuts to me. So I'm... Yeah, they're pushing
people
us.
Outside.
Gotta hop up here.
Come on, fucker.
I just hit him for 90. 36.
Hell yeah. Teamwork makes the dream work.
I got plenty of light. I don't need that. So yeah, so I'm scheduled to noon today, and then I'm scheduled to 2 o'clock the rest of the week.
Okay. Here's somebody else.
But like, clearly we fucking need people.
Oh, sorry.
Where was that box? That box is out here. Oh, here they come, I think.
I got gas. Oh, never mind. I'm running to this kid to help him.
Oh, I just got a charge rifle from behind.
shit, oh shit, oh shit. He's getting me up till...
Oh, it's a whole new squad, I think.
Okay.
Yeah. Hide, do what you gotta do.
Oh,
Yeah.
Couldn't get it.
That sucks, because that game really makes me want to play another one. But I can't. I'll be up to like 4 o'clock in the morning.
Yeah.
If I don't.
Yeah, I got you, man. It'll
Yeah.
get you hyped.
So. Like, I'm so mad at myself that like.
Because then one more failed game.
Right. But like I felt like I was doing good with the Peacekeeper there, so I'm like, well, I want to try that again. But it's like I spent so much of the, not so much, but I probably have only streamed for like 2 hours, maybe 2.5 hours. So like, I spend too many games being fucking angry about some bullshit. You know what I mean? So like, I actually was about to get off, and then you logged on. I'm like, you know what? Let's see if things change with him, instead of a fucking dumbass rando.
Yeah, I got you, man. When I'm playing solo, dude, sometimes 2 or 3 games, I'm just like, fuck this game. I'm turning the Xbox off until somebody I want to play with comes on. You know? For the randoms, it's like, what the fuck? And even sometimes when you're playing with one friend, and you just keep getting a dumbass random.
And that's what it was like, and it was like, I don't know, just like the one guy like actually ran away. Like we were in a fight, like there was a shootout that started, and the guy was looting during it, and then I went down, and Grim continued to fight, and then Grim eventually went down because there was a squad or 2 people or whatever, and the dude was like, at the time that Grim went down, he was running the opposite direction. Like, it's just so frustrating.
Oh, that's some bullshit.
So.
Oh, shit. He's a team player, obviously.
So.
Yeah. Like, thanks, guys.
So, and it was like, I think it was the game before that like pissed me off, and I just was kind of on tilt all night. And then
yeah, dude, I understand. That shit'll...
and then on top of like that, it's like, well, I still want to play because like I want to have fun playing this game, and like I want to make streaming a thing, but like I'm doing terrible, and I'm pissed about doing terrible. So I'm just like, who wants to watch that? Like I wouldn't want to watch a streamer who's just like super mad because they're missing their shots and like shit is just going south. So.
Yeah, I hear that. Some nights, you know, it's tough to be dedicated at all times, you know.
Yeah, and like I was actually excited. Like Mondays, I'm excited to get on and play because like I usually don't play over the weekends. If I do play, it's not Apex. It's usually something else, like with the girlfriend. Yeah, I'm off Thursday, maybe Wednesday too. Actually, I think I have. No. It's always different. It's usually weekdays because that's when they need people to process the truck. Yeah, it's not always Monday through Friday, but yeah, it's Monday. It's a bunch of those days. So like this last week was like right, last week was different hours but same days. So this week I'm Sunday through Thursday. I'm off Friday and Saturday, which is nice. I don't care what days, to have them consecutive like that. I really appreciate. So my first 2 weeks or whatever wasn't like that, but this is see, and like, so this is how crazy my schedule is. Sunday I went in at 12:15 and I was done at 8:15, which is weird timing. And then Oh wait, so I'm off 3 days next week? Oh no, that's not me. So what's today? Today's the 19th. So yeah, I'm not off till Friday. That's what it looks like. Yeah. Friday's my first day off. But I'm done early every day, so. But I gotta get the house ready for this Friendsgiving we're having Saturday. Yeah, but. Yep. Give her some of that wonderful cunnilingus. Right. Yeah, I just found out the other day that it was even happening. Yeah, I don't know what time it's gonna be. I just know it's supposed to be. I knew like when there was one happening. I didn't know that it was this Saturday until like a couple days ago, and I didn't know that it was at our house either until a couple days ago. So I have to get the house ready for it, and I don't know what we're cooking. We don't have anything, so like I have to go buy turkey, I guess, and shit. So. I'll probably be in bed after that. Yeah, I work Sunday. So, yeah. So, alright, but yeah, I'm gonna get my ass to bed. I'll talk to y'all later. I'm done early this week, so I might get on and play a little bit of something tomorrow. I don't know. Yeah, if I get enough of my shit done during the day and actually get it all cleaned up and whatever, then I can. There won't be an issue. But if I'm gaming and Kim comes home and there's like the house is still a mess, it's like you didn't fucking do anything, and you're gonna play video games. Like we have shit to do. That's when I get beat with the belt. So I have to avoid that. Yeah. She makes me go outside and take a branch off the tree and then make a staff out of it, and then she beats me with the staff. It's a whole process. Yeah, well, if I didn't have to make the paddle myself, maybe it wouldn't be a big deal. But I have to go make the paddle. Now I got a shirt then. Zero's putting a hurt on him. Take it to Browntown. And your friend's not invited. Yeah. Uh-huh. What? No, I didn't know you could do that either. Some pretty slick shit. Alright, gents, I'm going to bed. I'm outie. I'm outie like Trouty. I'll talk to y'all later. Thank you, you too. Enjoy it. Kill them nice and good. Yeah. Alright, so to you, my people, my wonderful, wonderful people, I want to say thank you to everybody that came out. You know the drill. I want to say thank you, whether you came out on Twitch, Mixer, YouTube, or Facebook. I want to shout out to Grim for the games. Thank Zero for the games. Thank Zed for hopping in the chat and hopping in the stream now. Keeping it lively. Looking at info up for the dog because Kim's poisoning our dogs. Yeah, thank you. It means everything to me. Stopping in. Zimmer Tracks. You're not here now, but I will definitely check out your video or your YouTube channel. Check out what your Apex videos look like. I gotta work on my YouTube. Anyway, so yeah, thank you. I'm tired. It's been a long day. Yeah. It means everything that you come out and spend a minute, 10 minutes, an hour, whatever it is. It means everything to me. Yeah, so thank you very much. To those who didn't come out, go